Have you ever wondered where your personality comes from? There are certain schools of thoughts that feel that we are born with our personalities, that a child starts to get a certain temperament from birth, whether they are gentle and patient or smiley and giggly and bubbly. There are other schools of thought that feel that personality and character is socially constructed, that exposure to people and places and environments helps to craft and influence our behavior irrespective of the traits that we were born with. And the biggest influence of this personality is the family unit. According to Bowen, to better understand a family, you need to look at it as a whole functioning unit. What each individual within that family does impacts and influences the others. And if exposed to such an environment over time, we consciously or unconsciously become social creations of that environment. Take, for example, a child who grows up in a home with an alcoholic parent. That child, however stable, happy, settled they were born, is going to start to develop an acute sense of awareness and intelligence. Read the situation and know when dad has come home happy and when he's in a mood to give out drinks and money or hugs and kisses, and when it's a bad day and what to do on such days. Do I run? Do I hide? Do I create jokes? Do I mediate? Children start to develop their own individual coping mechanisms for themselves, for siblings, and even for parents. Some of those character traits that are influenced within families can be the provider, the protector, the peacemaker, the joker, and even the labeled black sheeps of the family. Those are all identities that start to define us over time. A child who grows up learning to play a peacemaker within a family because it's been created by the circumstances of conflict within that family. You start to put yourself into positions of compromise and tolerance and mediation because you hate conflict or you have observed the impact that it is having for yourself or other family members. So, however positive that role grows to become in your life, however identity and character defining it becomes, it's been influenced by the circumstances of your upbringing within that family and becomes your own acknowledged identity. Another very significant role that is often influenced by family circumstances is the role of the provider. You see a father who becomes shameful and humiliated because they feel like they didn't protect, they didn't provide when needed. And that starts to define you, your manhood. The ability to do it or the inability to do it becomes your story, your identity. And it starts to define the emotion and the identity of the whole family. We've known siblings to drop out of school and get into all sorts of trades, sex, industries, warehouses to fend for the family because the expected hierarchy has been broken by trauma, circumstance, or behavior of one or the other person who was socially expected to be the provider. So, how do you change? How do you become a different person when over the years you have been consistently influenced by that thing that we've just discussed? The way that you can change is by, first of all, identifying your role within your family, your workplace, your community. Who are you? And how are you most likely to respond to conflict, to conversation? How do you communicate your own needs? There's a reason behind why you hate conflict, why you give in to avoid conflict. There's a reason behind why you are aggressive or triggered by certain topics or conversations or people. What does that role mean for you? Your own expectations, your own goals, your own shortcomings, your own identity definition. So ultimately, you cannot change until you identify and change through that role. Become another person. Start to reduce the way you give in for that conflict. Start to reduce the way you run away from that conflict, the way you blow up within that conflict, the role that you have always adapted over the years for one reason or the other has influenced your character. You've become that tolerant person who sometimes can be used for a doormat. You've become that patient person who creates peace against all the odds, even against your own wishes and feelings and plans and expectations. So until you start to position yourself into situations that bring out different characters in you, different expected roles, different personas, so that you can also over time enhance and perfect and adapt those new character traits, you'll never become a different person. You'll never be able to do things differently. We underestimate the stamp of a family identity on us, whether we conform or deviate willingly, consciously from that. It defines us. And so over time, to become other people, we have to start doing other things. We have to become exposed to other circumstances. The intergenerational emotions influence us. The way we see family dysfunctions. This auntie is not talking to that auntie. It becomes an acceptable family tradition that norms your normal abilities for communication, for conflict resolution, how you talk things out. It's an influence of how you grew up seeing people talk things out without blow up or walking away. We learned those things because we had role models that taught us those things. But if you're now an adult and you haven't had those characteristics, you can position yourself in different sets of circumstances that give you the ability to develop those roles within yourself as an individual. But you can only do that by identifying that this is who I am and this is potentially where this role has come from over time. Sometimes we are born happy, but in other cases, our happiness has come from exposure to secure attachments within certain families where we were not shamed for mistakes, where we were encouraged and praised, where we socialized appropriately. And we understand that these are happy days. We understand that these are sad days. But these sad days do not define us. We are products of our experiences of early day attachments. How we cried and someone came running. How they cuddled and kissed and promised that it would be okay. And how we found out later on that it became okay. We then settled within ourselves and trusted that it doesn't last forever. Pain doesn't last forever. Anxiety doesn't last forever. You become a different kind of child within that household than the child who didn't get nurtured, who didn't build that trust and attachment, whom nobody came running to kiss and cuddle and assure. That's how we start to be anxious, distrustful, trusting, confident. We start to build within us because someone built on us. But if you're a certain age and you're not that person, you can start to do that for yourself. But you can only do that if you understand where it came from and how it came to be. Families influence us, and then we in turn influence those families.